Shalom, shalom, shalom. Yisra Ya'el, Yehonathan Dawid with you here. Once again, humbly so, on what they call the 12th of December, 2021. This is installment number 2, I don't know how many there's going to be, of the greatest story ever told. The greatest story ever told is a love story. Love story of Yahweh and His creation. And it's a story that is written unlike anything that we could even imagine. We would never do it. We would never even, like I said last week, we would never even put the tree of good and evil in the garden. That's what we would do. We say, hey, that way we can't fall, we can't sin. Well, in that case, then what's the point of having the tree of life? You don't need a tree of life if you're going to live eternally and don't have an option of taking the tree of good and evil. And if you don't have that option, then do you actually have a relationship? Or do you have a robot? That's just one example of how we would just go and destroy this whole reality that we are in right now by boxing Yahweh into our way. Or did we not understand what the main theme of what Job is about? When Yahweh says, who is this that darkens my threshold without knowledge? We got to realize that we cannot box Yahweh. We don't know the whole thing. He knows the beginning from the end. What did he say? I didn't get a chance to finish go through those last scriptures I wanted to go through last week. I'm going to briefly go through them now. But this is beautiful. Yahweh, I pray once again that your Ruach rest all over me, be on me, to give this word to your ears that you want to hear this in the way that you've given it to me. In the unlaid and Kodesh Shem name of Yahweh Shua HaMashiach, I pray. I mentioned Romans 4:13-17 because in this greatest story ever told, we realize that we already know how the outcome is going to be. You know, every love story goes by the same formula. Boy meets girl, boy loses girl through some other agent who comes in, who tries to get in where he doesn't fit in and messes up everything. Then the girl has to make a choice between the good guy and the bad guy. You know, eventually the boy gets the girl back. We know how it ends, but we still watch the movie or the play or the show because we don't know all the details in between. In Romans 4:13-17, and it reads, for the promise that he would be the heir of the world was not to Abraham or to his seed through the law, but through the righteousness of faith. Because it was those who are of the law are heirs, faith is made void and the promise made of no effect. Because the law brings about wrath, for where there is no law, there is no transgression. Therefore it is of faith, that it might be according to grace, so that the promise might be sure to all the seed, not only to those who are of the law, but also to those who are of the faith of Abraham, who is the father of us all. As it is written, I have made you a father of many nations, in the presence of him whom he believed, Yahweh, who gives life to the dead and calls those things which do not exist as though they did. See, Yahweh is the one thing. If there is only one thing that you can say, list one characteristic of Yahweh that makes him different than every other entity, every other reality, it is this: that Yahweh is the only reality, the only entity that can create. Anyone else, anything else that can create things, but they have to create things by something that's already created, and they work off of it. Yahweh calls things to be that are not. If we must live by faith, because Yahweh he exists by faith. He calls things to be, and his word always comes back to him fruitful. Where did Shaul? That was Shaul. He was quoting from Isaiah, a scripture that you well know. I've quoted so many times. Isaiah 46. I'll go back to verse 9 this time instead of just reading verse 10. Isaiah 46, verse 9 and 10. Remember the former things of old, because I, Elohim, and there is no other. I am the mighty one, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from the ancient times things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel will stand, and I will do all my pleasure. Remember Job. He didn't know the whole story, what was going on behind the scenes. Will the tree dare say to the owner of the property who chops him down, he makes a desk out of one part of the wood and a chair and a bed, and then the rest of it, remainder, he puts in the fireplace to warm himself? Trees, how can the tree complain about what parts of it gets used for what? Who's the owner? Who's the boss? I write a book, you make a painting, somebody writes a song. You have the authority over how it goes. Yahweh is the creator. The pottery dares not rise itself up against the potter. You don't know the whole story. And we can't. And we could never make it the way this story is going to be. The way it is unfolding. Isaiah 7 and 14. This is how this story is, like I said, it's not how we would do it. Let's go to Isaiah. We're going to do a lot from Isaiah. And I didn't finish last week. And I want to go revisit that. I have no time restriction on this story. I'm going to give it out as Yahweh gives it to me. Isaiah 7:14. And it reads, therefore, the sovereign himself will give you a sign. Look, the virgin will conceive and bear a son, and will call his name Emmanuel. Elohim is with us. Wow, something unheard of, unnatural, never happened before. This package of love is going to come out from a virgin woman. This is something that goes beyond what the created mind. Let's go with the next few various chapters. Staying in this book, Isaiah 9, 6, and 7. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty Elohim, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and shalom, there will be no end upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to order it and establish it with judgment and justice from that time forward, even forever. The zeal of Yahweh Shabbaot will perform this. What? Wow, David's already dead and gone. You're saying this is going to come through that line, that vein. A child is born, but a son is gifted. It's the difference between the child being born and the son being gifted. And Yahweh is speaking tough stuff. He said, I'm going to do this thing, and I have zeal in me to get the passion of this gift through to you. This love I have in me is boiling up. Let's stay right here in this same book. Chapter 50. Chapter 50, 6 through 11. Because I rushed through this last week, these verses I'm reading now. But they're so beautiful, so beautiful. Chapter 50, 6 through 11. I gave my back to those who struck me, and my cheeks to those who plucked out my beard. I did not hide my face from shame and spitting, because the sovereign Yahweh will help me. Therefore I will not be disgraced. Therefore I have set my face like a flint. I know that, and I will not be ashamed. He is near who justifies me. Who will contend with me? Let us stand together. Who is my adversary? Let him come near to me. Surely the sovereign Yahweh will help me. Who is he who will condemn me? Indeed, they will grow old like a garment. The moth will eat them up. Who among you fears Yahweh? Who obeys the voice of his servant? Who walks in darkness and has no light? Let him trust in the name of Yahweh and rely on his mighty one. Wow, would you write it like that? Would you have this gift that you get to someone be beaten down like that? Can you imagine how it hurts to have your beard pulled out in chunks? What? This confounded the accuser, Hasatan. This confounded him. What's going on? Well, I don't quite understand this. Okay, it's going to be born of a virgin, but then is this gift going to be beaten up like this? Is this the story? Is this how it's going to look? Let's keep going to two more chapters over. 52:14. 52:14. This is the lines of the greatest story ever told. 52:14. And notice how this gift, receives it. He doesn't hide from it. He receives his lot. He trusts in Yahweh. He said, and he called on his name as his strength. 52:14. Just as many were astonished at you, so his visage was marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men. No man on the earth was beaten and bruised as much as this man. The way he looked was beaten down. What? Is this a love story? Or is this a tragedy? Or is this, what is this? What is going on here? This is a love story? Let's go to the next verse, next chapter, 53, 2 through 12. 53, 2 through 12. Because he will grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of the ground. He has no form nor comeliness, and when we see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we did not esteem him. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken. This word stricken I'm going to go back to. Smitten by Elohim and afflicted. He was stricken, smitten, and afflicted. He had no form and comeliness. Okay, I'm going to talk about this. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him. And by his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way. And as Yahweh has laid on him the iniquity of us all, he was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He was led as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before his shears is silent. Silent. He was not on Facebook and social media screaming and yelling at the enemy or who you perceive to be the enemy and blasting them. He received his shame in silence. So he opened not his mouth. Israel needs to shut up out there. Y'all need to shut up. I'm telling you, you need to shut up. He was taken from prison. Let me see how far I'm going to go down to this, because this goes on. I'm going to go down some more. He was taken from prison and from judgment. And who will declare his generation? For he was cut off from the land of the living. For the transgression of my people he was stricken. And they made his grave with the wicked, but with the rich at his death, because he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it pleased Yahweh to bruise him. He has put him to grief. When you make his soul an offering for sin, he will see his seed, he will prolong his days, and the pleasure of Yahweh will prosper in his hand. He will see the labor of his soul, and is satisfied by his knowledge. By his knowledge, my righteous servant will justify many, because he will bear their iniquities. Therefore, I will divide him a portion with the great, and he will divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul unto death. See, it's going to end up good, but look what he has to go through. And Yahweh did not want, remember we talked about how, you think about it. Think about, we love celebrity and popularity. Some celebrity, someone who has a #1 hit, or who has a movie came out, or whatever, and he or she is single, will have no problem going into a club or a bar or a social gathering and come out if he wants, or she wants. If she wants to come out with just pure sex and flesh, we have no problem doing it. Because this is whomever, whomever great, whoever star you want to put out there. Whatever great actor, great singer, great musician, they have no problems getting flesh if they want it. They will have no problems having followers and people to like them and having great supporters. But it's the little humble one in the corner, the one who doesn't look right, who's cross-eyed and buck-toothed and acne and don't have the good hair. We don't even esteem them. Yahweh sure was not a good-looking man. And if you go by the description of the menorah, which is about 5'3", maybe about 100 pounds. That was Yahweh, the menorah being one of the representatives of Yahweh in the ark. Yahweh was about 5'3", 100 pounds, and he was twisted to the right and limped like he made Jacob. So yes, you get the parodies and the jokes about the brothers bopping. That's because they got it from Yahweh, who had a diddy bop. Just like he made Jacob, who walked the rest of his life after wrestling with Yahweh with a bop, a limp. And he had the diddy bop, little bop. You would not follow him based on what he looked like. Yahweh wants those who love him, follow him for who he is. He did not bring up somebody tall, dark, and handsome. And here's the worst of it for us who like to box Yahweh. He was albino. Yes, it took me a while to figure this out and reading the scriptures and going by the original words, original truth. Original words gives you authentic truth. When you look at the Iberit, by him being stricken, he was albino. So he would look like a white man. And I know you don't like that. A lot of people probably clicking off the station now, jaws dropping. Because we want to see him the way we want him to be. Tall, black, strong, ripping muscles, when he was none of that. Because then you will easily follow. Yes, this is our Messiah. Yep, this is one who's going to kick Romans' buttocks and free us. Even to the end, after he resurrected, the disciples still saying, are you going to now take the kingdom? Still, after he had resurrected and explained to them, they still saying, okay, now you're going to take the kingdom? Now you're going to do it right here? You're going to kick butt right now? We're ready. We got our swords. They're ready at the Gethsemane, and it was ready after the resurrection. We still try to make Yahweh fit the way we want him. We try to rewrite his story. We want to write his story the way we want it to make it fit us and our limited, created, physical minds. Stop this. You had a man that anyone followed him because they loved him. How righteous are you? How righteous am I? If we picked ourselves up now and put ourselves in that position at that time and said, he's the one? This is the Messiah? He's not tall and handsome like King Saul. Now, Dawid wasn't tall, but he was a good-looking, ruddy, beautiful hair and big eyes. This man, if you followed him, Ruach HaKodesh touched your heart to believe in this man. He don't want you to follow him because he has money. He was home after he started the ministry. He was homeless, living out there on the Mount of Olives at the tree that he was going to sacrifice him, that almond tree. Continuing on, you will know why Hasatan had Yeshayahu, whom you call Isaiah, sawed in half. Isaiah 47, 6 through 15. 47. See, this man, this greatest story, this is a beautiful thing. 47, 6 through 15. I was angry with my people. I have profaned my inheritance and given them into your hand. You showed them no mercy. On the elderly you laid your yoke very heavily. And you said, I will be a lady forever, so that you did not take these things to heart, nor remember the latter end of them. Therefore, Yahweh was angry with us for a little while because of our rebellion. And he gave us over, but they took it too far. They took it to this day. Here we are. They enslaved us to the end. Therefore, hear this now, you who are given to pleasure, who live secretly, who live securely, who say in your heart, I am and there is no other. Besides me, I will not sit as a widow, nor will I know the loss of children. But these two things will come to you in a moment and in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They will come upon you in their fullness because of the multitude of your sorceries, for the great abundance of your enchantments. Let me read some more of this. Because you have trusted in your wickedness, you have said, no one sees me. Your wisdom and your knowledge have warped. He says you're warped because the wicked, they got us, they took us, they scattered us, and they enslaved us, and they beat us down, they spill our bloods in the streets, and they have not considered the end. They think that this is from their own power. Therefore, evil will come upon you, and you will know that you will not know from where it rises. And trouble will fall upon you, and you will not be able to put it off. And desolation will come upon you suddenly, which you will not know. Stand now with your enchantments and the multitude of your sorceries in which you have labored from your youth. Perhaps you will be able to profit. Perhaps you will prevail. You are wearied in the multitude of your counsels. Let now the astrologers and astronomers, stargazers, and the monthly prognosticators stand up and save you from what will become upon you. Look, they will be as stubble. The fire will burn them. They will not deliver themselves for the power of flame. All these great prognosticators. It will not be a coal to be warmed by, nor a fire to sit before. It's going to be hotter than that. Thus will they be to you, with whom you have labored, your merchants from your youth. You will wander each one to his quarter. No one will save you. See how no one comes to your aid now? Your blood gets spilled down the street, and the law justifies the man who killed you. The officer in blue, Yahweh says, no one's going to come to save you. And Hasatan had this man sawed in half, because he cut him to the heart. You hurting Yahweh's anointed, Yahweh's people, because they were handed over just for a little while, but you took it to the end. You took it to the end. You had no mercy, and Yahweh's going to have no mercy on you. Yehonatan Dawid with you here, Yahweh for Christians, talking about the greatest story ever told. The greatest story ever told is a love story. And this segment is Tohu Wabohu. Genesis 1:1. Bereshit bara Elohim at ha-shemayim wa at ha-eretz. In the beginning of Elohim's creating the heavens and the earth. From the very beginning, this one sentence tells everything of the whole story, the entire Bible, so-called Bible, from front to end. Matter of fact, Bereshit, the first word, tells the whole story from beginning to end. As a matter of fact, the first letter, the Bayet, which we call letter B, tells the entire story, the entire love story from cover to cover. And we're going to go into that before we finish this, but not today. See, there's 4 levels of understanding Yahweh's word. You have the Peshat, which is the plain, simple, obvious meaning of the text. You have the Remez, which is the allegorical, hidden, symbolic meaning beyond the literal. You have the Drash, which seeks comparative midrash meanings of similar words. And you have the Sod, the secret esoteric meanings. And we're going to go, you're going to learn so much more when you look at the deeper meanings of these words. Because remember, both good and evil have access to this word. So Yahweh had to hide it for the wise to understand. Those who love you, who seek a relationship with Yahweh, a relationship with Him. Because the thing about it is, most of our knowledge, I don't know, but maybe 99% at least of our knowledge, and I would say probably even higher than 99% of the knowledge that we have comes to us from non-Iberite men and women. They come to us from the Erev Rav. The Erev Rav control all the disseminated knowledge given to on the earth. So how are you going to get truth? How many people are listening to Yehonatan Dawid? How many people are listening to men who are teaching or preaching in the unleavened name of Yahweh Shua? Where are you getting your information from? And it's all designed to twist us away from the greatest story ever told. It denies the creator, who he is, his name, his people, and denies your history. It is designed to warp reality, to warp your understanding of this story. That's what its designed is. So we're going to have to be a people who fast, who pray, who seeks a relationship with Yahweh, so you can read and understand and discern. This KJV that you live and die by lies from the 4th word. In the beginning, God. The 4th word is a lie. So how can one man read it and says, in the beginning, Elohim, and another man reads and says, in the beginning, God, and they both get to read the same thing, but they believe 2 different things? Ruach HaKodesh. We cannot follow the narrative of 1,200 orangutan-looking men on the earth, looking like an ugly orangutan, Erev Rav, about 1,200 of them. That's it. Who control everything on this earth. Every war, every pandemic, every curse, all the inflations, all the wars, all the political. You think you got rights and you're voting no. They control every outcome of every election and everything you're reading, and you're going to go ahead and live and die by what they give you? A wise one would not do such. A wise one would not do such. I'm going to give you an example of how we do get out a lot of our knowledge and information from outside of the Iberite seed, and that is fine for those who are grafted in. I'm going to talk about Yetro, one of the greatest men in the entire Bible, but you don't even realize it because you just read it from the KJV and you're not understanding original words to get authentic truth. But I'm going to begin in the book of Jasher. Jasher. Oh, you say, oh, Jasher? That's not in the KJV. There you go again. There you go again. Whatever the Rav gives you, that's what you go by. If they don't give it to you, you don't go by it. Yet, this book is referenced in the KJV at least 3 times. At least 3 times. They had it, they read it, and they quoted it. I'm going to read various verses from chapters 67, 76, and 77. First, in chapter 67, I'm going to read, this is verse 11, then I'm going to go to 16, 18, 23, 24, 26, 7. I'm going to skip down through because there's a whole lot. I'm not going to be able to do all that. This is I'm reading all this to give a backdrop on Yetro, who was Moshe's father-in-law, and we know that he advised Moshe on how to organize himself in judging Israel. And Moshe took his heed, and Moshe knew the value of this man and tried to have him stay with him. So let's give a little backdrop though. And in the 113th year of Israel's going down to Mizraim, Pharaoh dreamed that he was sitting upon his kingly throne, and lifted up his eyes and saw an old man standing before him. And there were scales in the hands of the old man, such scales as are used by merchants. And then he goes on and tells a story of the dream. I'm going to skip down. So when Pharaoh rose up early in the morning and called all the servants and related to them the dream, and the men were greatly afraid. And the king said to all the wise men, interpret, I pray you, the dream which I dreamed, that I may know it. And Balaam the son of Beor answered the king and said unto him, this means nothing else but a great evil that will spring up against Mizraim in the latter days. So then I'm going to skip on down and verse 23. And Balaam answered the king, saying, send now and call your 2 counselors, and we will see what their advice is upon this matter. And afterward they will all, then I will speak. And the king sent and called his 2 counselors, Ruel, which is Yetro, and the Midianite, and Eob the Uzite. And they came and sat before the king. Now this is not Eob from the book of Job, okay? But we do know this is also gives you a little bit back history of why Balaam hated Israel so much. And this is part of the reason why he hated Israel so much, because he always lost out to Moshe. He always, when he went head to head against Moshe, he would lose out. So you have to read all of that chapter on your own, but I'm going to continue on. Okay, and I'm going to go to chapter 76. And I'm going to go down to 21. And Moshe related to, now, so they were advised on this dream, okay? And actually, I'm going to go down to 41 now, verse 41. So the Pharaoh had 3 advisors, one of which is Yetro, about this dream. Yetro, or Yetro was the more accurate rendering of it. This is what he said in verse 26. And Ruel the Midianite answered the king and said, may the king live. May the king live forever. If it seems good to the king, let him decease from the Hebrews and leave them, and let him not stretch forth his hand against them. See, there's always the Hebrew problem. I told you about the Hebrew problem. And they always want to handle the Hebrew problem, which is you. All right, the governments always want to try to handle that. But Jethro said, leave him alone. But these are they whom Yahweh chose in the days of old, and took as the lot of his inheritance. See, he knows their history. And among all the nations of the earth, and the kings of the earth, and who is there that stretched his hand against them with impunity, of whom their mighty one has not avenged? He's saying, listen, watch it. Yahweh's going to avenge anything you do to his people. And then he goes on and gives great examples throughout the history of Israel how Yahweh avenged us. So I'm going to skip all that and go down to verse 41. And when Pharaoh heard the words of Yetro, he was very angry with him, so that he rose with shame. Yetro rose with shame from the king's presence and went to Midian, his land, and took Yusef's stick with him. He took Yusef's stick with him. Interesting. Now, this stick, this is why I want to get this background, because you're not going to get this from the KJV, and I've talked about this for years. I'm going to go to the next chapter and go over to verse 21. And Moshe related to Yetro, because this is after Moshe now is grown and escaped, and we know the history of Moshe and how he got to Midian. So I'm going to skip all that. So he related to Yetro that he had fled from Mizraim, and that he reigned 40 years over Cush, and that they afterward had taken the government from him and had sent him away in peace and honor with it and with presents. And when Ruel had heard the words of Moshe, he said within himself, I will put this man into the prison house, whereby I will conciliate the children of Cush, for he has fled from them. So now Yetro saying, you know what? This man's like me. 40 years ago, I ran from there, and now they still might be out after me. This man is here. So Yetro had him locked up. He ended up being in dungeon for 10 years. We know and in the meantime, his wife, unbeknownst to Yetro, was keeping him alive by feeding him. Now, continue with the story. Bear with me here now. And going to the next chapter. And we're going to see that in verse 36. So now his Zipporah, his going to be wife, says, hey, check out this man and Moshe that you had him put in the dungeon 10 years ago, and see what became of him. So this is what he does. So he saw, and behold, the man Moses was living in the dungeon, standing up on his feet, praising and praying to Yahweh of his ancestors. And Yetro commanded Moses to be brought up out of the dungeon. So they shaved him, and he changed his prison garments and ate bread. So Yetro said, this man is a miracle man. He lived in there for 10 years. He didn't know that his daughter was feeding him for 10 years. But this man was down there for 10 years. He said, this is a special man. He had him brought up, had him cleaned and bathed and showered and shaved and fed him. And afterward, Moses went into the garden of Yetro, which was behind the house. And here they prayed to Yahweh. He prayed to Yahweh, his Elohim, who had done mighty wonders for him. And it was that while he prayed, he looked opposite to him, and look, a sapphire stick was placed in the ground. Sapphire, okay? Which was planted in the midst of the garden. And he approached the stick, and he looked, and behold, the name of Yahweh Elohim of hosts was engraved thereon, written and developed upon the stick. So the stick, it was written and developed. It was really suspended within the stick. It was suspended within the stick. It's like it was his name, Yahweh's name was in there, and written in a way that couldn't be done by regular hands. And he read it and stretched forth his hand and plucked it like a forest tree from the thicket. And the stick was in his hand. Remember I told you your ticket is in the thicket. So Moshe plucked it right on out of the ground. Now, I'm gonna read on about this stick. This is a special stick, because reading here, continuing on, I'm going to just read instead of going. And the stick which all the works of this stick is a stick which all the works that Yahweh had performed after he had created the heaven and the earth, and all the hosts of them, the seas, the rivers, and all their fishes. And when Yahweh had driven Adam from the Garden of Eden, he took the stick in his hand and went and tilled the ground with which it was taken. This stick came down to Noah and was given to Shem and his descendants until it came into the hand of Abraham the Hebrew. And when Abraham had given all he had to his son Isaac, he also gave him this stick. And when Jacob had fled to Padam Aram, he took it into his hand, and when he returned to his father, he had not left it behind him. Now, you can read that in Hebrews, in the book of Hebrews. And it reads in Hebrews 11:21, and by faith Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of his sons of Yusuf and worship leaning on the top of this staff, this very stick that we're talking about here now in the book of Jasher. So this he kept this. This is all he had when he went to get his wife, because he was robbed by Esau's son. You know, Esau didn't send his son to go get a wife broke. All he had was this staff. So in verse 48, and after the death of Yusuf, okay, also in verse 47, also when he went down to Mizraim, he took it into his hand and gave it to Yusuf, one portion above his brethren, for Jacob had taken it by force from his brother Esau, because when he had the covenant, he had the stick. And after the death of Yusuf, the nobles of Egypt came down into the house of Yusuf, and the stick came into the hand of Yetro the Midianite. And when he went out to Mizraim, he took it in his hand and planted it in the garden. So now after all these years, no man could take it out. And this is where you get the fable, the sword and the stone. They got it from the greatest story ever told. The greatest story ever told is a love story. They got it from here, where all the men try to get the king's daughter, and the only man who was worthy would be the one who could take the sword out of the stone. Well, this is Moshe was able to take the so-called stick out of the earth. This is the same branch. This is Yahweh's outstretched arm. This is the revelation of his commandment. This is the same branch that Hasatan sat on as he beguiled Mother Hawa, and they took the fruit from this. It had a fork, 2 prongs for each fruit to come off of. It was not a hook like you see in all the pictures, a shepherd's hook. It had 2 prongs pointed, because Adam also used it to till the ground. So it was not a curved cane looking thing. So this is the same thing. I'm going to go into this in further studies in the future, that Dawid took this same, it was kept in the Ark of the Covenant. And this is what, when Dawid was running from his son Absalom, who was going to kill him, he went up to the Mount of Olives and planted this same stick into the earth. After Hezekiah removed, and this is the one that Moshe covered up with the snake. Hezekiah removed that snake from it, and that's when it blossomed into the almond tree. You see why Aaron's rod, which was an olive tree, but it almonds. Yahweh Shua, the greatest story ever told as a love story, died on an almond tree on the Mount of Olives. This is deep stuff I'm giving you. You're not going to hear anywhere else. And it's not say that I'm doing anything prophetic. It comes from just from studying and reading and getting original words for authentic truth. Can you write a story like that? Can the creative mind write a story like this? Yahweh says he caused the end from the beginning. From the beginning, this was all planned. We just need to do our part. Now to this man Yetro, who Moshe's father-in-law. Let's show you some more deep ties with this man and how it plays into the end times. Okay? Now, he is from the second son of Ham, which is Mizraim. So Yetro is from the second son of Ham, Mizraim. That's part of his genetic background. But he's also the father of the Kenites, who worshiped Yahweh. So even though Yetro was not covenant to Yahweh, his progeny worshiped Yahweh. And get this. Remember, original words get you original truth. What does the name of Yetro mean? It means the revelation of Yah's covenant to the head of men grafted in. Can you get that reading KJV? Read English when you just read Jethro. When you read the name of Jethro, do you understand that it means the revelation of Yahweh's covenant to the head of the men grafted in? You will not get that. You will not get that understanding. So this is why Yehonathan Dawid may seem like he knows so much more than you when he really doesn't. He just studies the words and studies the letters. It makes you seem, it lifts you up. Remember, we talked about the 4 levels of understanding Torah. This is Sod level, the deepest level. So we've got a man here who has an important role in history in Israel, and that's not all. The Kenites, which is Yethro's progeny, are related to Hamath. And Hamath is the father of the house of Rechab. You can go to 1 Chronicles 2:55 for that. 1 Chronicles 2:55. This is where Rechab comes from. Now, we know Yetro, this was a great prophet because he refused Moshe's offer to go to the Kodesh land with him, Eretz Israel. He already knew what was going to happen to us as a stiff-necked people. We were going to get into that land and show our behinds, and we did. And he knew it, and he didn't want to go. But they did go to Jericho. They did settle in Jericho, and so they still remained close to us, going to Jericho and settling there. And you can go to Judges 1:16 and 1 Samuel 27:10 to find that. And what did they do? After our first time going into exile, the first Babylonian exile, Yethro's descendants did not go with us. They moved down south. They went down south, okay? Like again, you can go to Judges 1:16 or 1 Samuel 27:10. They went down south. Now, but some of them still remain, because we know about Yael. She was the wife of Eber. Eber is from Yethro's genes, okay? From his genealogy. And he married Yael. We all know Yael, who killed Sisera. Sisera is the one, and this is in the story, and go to Judges 4. Judges 4:11, and also verses 17:23. We know about how she put the spike through his head and killed him. He was the one that spoke great proclamations against us. Spoke mighty things against us, and he spoke against us in Hebrew. So we can make sure we heard and understand how he was going to kick butt and kill us and do all kinds of things to us. So we know what Yahweh sent the destroying angel to kill all of his men. We know that. And then he escaped, and Yael killed him. So, but the point is, this comes from the line of Yetro. And then going furthermore, this story gets even deeper. We know that King Saul, who spent a great part of his career in destroying the Amalekites, when the Kenites, remember, they moved down south, they kind of were in proximity with the Amalekites. They did not mix with the Amalekites, which were giants, but they were in proximity with them. In 1 Samuel 15:6, we see that King Saul, because we knew our history back then, we don't know it now, he told them to get away from them, because get ready to destroy them. So they left the Amalekites, and then we go to Jeremiah 35. Remember, I told you about Rechab, right? The Rechabites are a special group of people. These people vowed, the father of all the Rechabites vowed that they would drink no wine, build no houses, sow no seed, or plant no vineyard, nor they will only live in tents. Can you imagine living? That's living by faith. That is living by faith. We go to Hebrews 11, talk about the faith chapter. Living by faith, this is being a toshab, a sojourner. We are supposed to be like this, yet we claim we are righteous. Can you live so righteous where you let Yahweh, this is living by your daily bread. This is how they vowed to live. This impressed Yahweh so much. Let's go to Jeremiah 35. Read all of Jeremiah 35, but I'm just going to skip to verses 13 to 19. Verses 13 through 19 of this greatest story ever told. Thus says Yahweh Shabbaoth, the mighty one of Israel, go and tell the men of Yehuda and the inhabitants of Yeshurun, will you not receive instructions to obey my words, says Yahweh? The words of Yehonadab, this is Yehonadab, who is the original, he's the Rechabite who made this vow. And Yahweh says you have to honor your vows. The son of Rechab, which he commended his sons not to drink wine or perform, for to this day they drink none and obey their father's commandment. But although I have spoken to you, rising up early and speaking to you, you did not obey me. I have also sent to you all my servants, the prophets, rising up early and sending them, saying, turn now every one from his evil way. Amend your doings and do not go after other mighty ones to serve them. Then you will live in the land which I have given you and your fathers. But you have not inclined your ear, nor did you obey me. Continuing on. Surely the sons of Yehonadab, the son of Rechab, have performed the commandment of their father, which he commanded them. But this people have not obeyed me. This is Yehuda, don't obey him. We want to buy t-shirts and hats and beat you on your chest. You're Judah, okay? Therefore, thus says the Yahweh Shabbaot, the mighty one of Israel. Look, I will bring on Yehuda and on all the inhabitants of Jerusalem all the doom that I have promised against them, because I have spoken to them, but they have not heard, and I have called on them, but they have not answered. And Jeremiah said to the house of the Rechabites, thus says Yahweh Shabbaot, the mighty one of Israel, because you have obeyed the commandment of Jehonadab, your father, and kept all his precepts, and done according to all that he commanded you. Therefore, thus says Yahweh Shabbaot, says Yahweh of hosts in English, the mighty one of Israel, Jehonadab, the son of Rechab, will not lack a man to stand before me forever. Yahweh is so impressed with people who love him and have faith in him to feed them and to take care of them. He says, because you do this and your sons follow, you will never lack a man standing before me. That means today, as I speak on so-called the 12th of December 2021, somewhere Yahweh's got these people before him, serving him, waiting for the coming of the Messiah. Remember, in Ezekiel 37, he talks about Yehuda having his companions with him. We know that they stayed close to Yehuda. And he also married with the Benjamites. So this is going to be the companions of Yehuda. And they are more faithful than all the 12 tribes of Israel, including Judah. This comes from Yetro, the line of Yetro. And this is why Moshe knew that this was a special man. And he knew this was a special man, but he did not go with him. So we see that we like to brag about being Judah so much in this greatest story. And we love about how Jehu, who he killed Jezebel, but who did he have with him in his chariot? He had a Rechabite in the chariot with him when he had Jezebel thrown down to the ground. Jezebel is a pivotal character throughout the history of the enemies of Israel. We had Jezebel. We also had King Herod's wife, who had John the Baptist's head beheaded. We also had Isabella, who wrote a covenant with the Pope to start the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade. And then even to this day, we had Queen Elizabeth. All these names are the same. All these four women were women with men's spirits of Balaam and Balak, who sought to destroy Yahweh's people. This is women with the men's spirit to behead the top men, the alpha dogs, if you will, of Yahweh's people. From Jezebel all the way down here to Queen Elizabeth today. The same spirit. And this is the one. Here's a scripture that I'm sure you passed over you. Never thought about. Never thought about a second time, did you? Micah 7:10. Then she, then she who is my enemy will see. And shame will cover her who said to me, where is Yahweh your Elohim? My eyes will see her. She's right now laughing at her saying, where's Yahweh your Elohim? But Yahweh said he's going to get her. The enemy we have is a male. It is Hasatan, but it's in the body of a woman. It's in the body of a woman. From the very beginning. Remember, that is the weaker sex. So we talk about the serpent on the tree in the Garden of Eden. Well, that was the closest creature. He went to this creature. This is the closest creature to man. It's the only creature on earth that Yahweh made that walked upright like man. And the Bible says it was the most intelligent of all the creatures, second only to man. But we know man is the greatest sex. Adam was not deceived. Eve was. She was the weaker vessel. The same thing with the serpent. Hasatan entered a female serpent. It was a female serpent that deceived Eve. It was the male voice. It was Hasatan, who was a male inside of a female serpent. But you don't get things that goes over your head, like in Shrek, when you had the dragon who was a female dragon who made it with the donkey. That's a whole nother deep story. Because that's where started the gene mixing in after the flood, after the covenant, I should say, the breaking up of Jacob and Esau. Because I see once again I'm going to have to go, not going to even be able to finish going into the Tohu Wabohu, because we're talking about some deep stuff here. But to go into this story, if you want to know a little more deeper, I do want to take time to plug Yahweh for Christians, the book. Because in this book, I have a chapter entitled Why the Deletion. In Why the Deletion, I talk about there are 20 major synods, they call them S-Y-N-O-D-S, synods, that were meted out to decide what we believe today, to decide how they was going to formulate the Torah and rewrite it and send it out. 20, there were more than 20, but 20 major ones where you had the Erev Rav and Esau seed, and you had Latin and Roman, so-called white men and red men, and you had Esau all coming together, his seed, to have meetings on how they're going to rewrite the Torah. Because once Yahweh died and resurrected, and then all the disciples died the first century, the world was never the same. Because now the whole world did believe in a single creator instead of multiple ones. But so the Erev Rav and the scribes and Pharisees and the lawyers, they had to rewrite the story. And they had major meetings on how to repackage this and give this to us. But that's not all. There also, before the Council of Nicaea, everybody knows about 325 AD, but even before that, there was 13 major councils and meetings by non-Hebrew men on how to formulate this greatest story ever told and how to give it to us. So that means you had 33 major, there was more than 33, but 33 major meetings, and I outlined this in my book, Yahweh for Christians, coming together of non-Hebrew men on how they're going to put this story together to teach you today. And today you hang your hat on in the beginning God. In the beginning God. But we know if you have Ruach HaKodesh, you will see that you have to have him to guide you, navigate you to understand this. This is why if you have someone, there are 225 books from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Knowledge is increasing. Yahweh finally let it be found. And this is why you want to read books like Jubilees and Jasher. You want to read these books because these books are telling you things that they kept out. And even this, even after just official 1611 version of the King James Bible, you had 7 revisions from the official book. This is after they finished doing all their lying, call themselves dotting their I's and crossing their T's. Then they come up with the 1611 book, Bible. You had 7 more major revisions. 1615, 1629, 1638, 1762, 1769. Major changes to the official book. Can you believe that? You get my book and read the details of it. But guess what? That's not all. It wasn't until 1769 that you first get your Lord God Jesus Christ in the Bible. The first time Jesus Christ is in the KJV is in 1769. You're talking about 158 years after the official Bible. Yet when I say today that your master, your savior, your object of your desire of the greatest story ever told, Yahweh Shua, was not Jesus, you deny it and you say that's not true. But for 158 years, if I said that, you would have said, yeah, you would agree with me. Because there was no Jesus in the Bible. There was no Jesus in the Bible. There was no Jehovah in the Bible. Yet you waited till the so-called quote-unquote white man to put him in there, and then you believe it. But that's not all. In 1828, now you're talking about 27 years later, they took out the Apocrypha. So now you have a brother who quotes from the Apocrypha. You're going to say, well, you're not going to agree to it? You're not going to believe it because it's the Apocrypha? Oh, because the quote-unquote white man took it out. Now it's not official. Now it's not true. It was true for until 1828. Over 200 plus years in the Bible. You believed it then. So now if I quote it today, you won't believe it? See, you cannot box Yahweh. You cannot go and follow the narrative given you. You cannot do that. Because if you do that, you're realizing that this is what you're saying. That you're going to go ahead and take the KJV, what is given you, been chopped and diced and ginsued, chewed up and spat out, and then you're going to eat it and take it as if you live and die by it? So I go ahead and quote from Jasher, the story, this great story, this backdrop of Yetro, who you call Yetro, and the backdrop of this stick, this rod that Moshe and Aaron used to do great miracles, and how that eventually became the rod that Yahweh Shua died on. Isn't that great knowledge you are not getting today on Sunday? And you probably didn't even get yesterday on Shabbat, even by your Hebrews? You're going to get this knowledge from a man of Yah, an anointed man of Yah, who teaches in the unlaven name of Yahweh Shua. Who is not going to box Yahweh, who's going to receive the story of Yahweh, and not going to go ahead and receive it as it's been given to you by your enemy. Men who were not Hebrew, your enemies, the ones who enslaved you to this day, going to write the book and give it to you, and you're going to go by that? Oh no. And why 1828 did they take it out? Theodore Sedgwick Wright. Sounds like a good old nice European white man name, but it's not. This is a brother. The first black graduate of Princeton Theological Seminary. This is what? 40-something years before the end of slavery? We got a brother graduating from the Princeton Theological Seminary. You want to know why they took it out? Took out the Apocrypha? Because we're starting to learn and starting to get knowledge, and black people, so-called black people, starting to read. So we didn't even get a chance to talk about Tohu Wabohu, but we're going to continue. Next week, this is Yonathan Dawid. We're going to talk about the greatest story ever told, a love story. A love story from Yahweh to us. Until then, Yonathan Dawid with you here. Shalom Aleichem. Peace be on you.